What's the scariest thing that has ever happened to you? I had a heart attack at 25 years old on New Year's Eve while I was at home on my own. Wasn't really feeling well during the day, a bit like flu, so I cancelled my plans, and about 10 p.m. I started sweating uncontrollably, and within half an hour had this indescribable pain in my chest. Between the panic and the pain, I couldn't really do much. I absolutely thought I was going to die on my own on New Year's Eve. I somehow managed to dial 000, and for a final joke to the situation, I went into cardiac arrest at exactly midnight. A robber got into my house when I was about 8. Luckily, my dog noticed and bit the guy's leg and wouldn't let go. My dad heard the commotion, ran downstairs to see the robber trying to go back over the fence. With my dog still attached to their leg, my dad had to pull my dog off this guy's leg because she wouldn't let go. Police were called, but the guy was long gone. Doggy is still alive to this day. We got robbed in the night, but just by some daft kids who were scared off when they heard my mom coming downstairs with my brother when he was a baby, luckily. My dog was found upstairs covering under the bed. She was also scared of flies and Pavarotti. She was a lovely little coward. One of my poodles is also scared of flies and will hide under furniture if he hears one. The other poodle has jumped between me and the TV on several occasions to protect me and bark fiercely at polar bears or lions on screen. Dogs are idiots and I love them. When I was 7, I was playing in my grandpa's front yard. A random car pulled up beside me and a young lady with an older man pulled out a rabbit in a cage, and she said, "Hey, you want to pet my cute rabbit?" Being the foolish and naive youth that I was, I approached the car and I was within an arm's reach of the lady when my grandma came running out screaming at me. I don't remember what she said, but I had never heard anything like that before. The car then sped off and my grandma ripped me from the pavement and took me inside. I'm so grateful she was there, and I always think about how different my life would be had she have been there a couple of seconds later. Got robbed at gunpoint and pistol whipped. The scariest thing that happened to me was probably getting robbed at gunpoint. But the most scared I've ever been was when one of my kids at the summer camp I worked at had a seizure while crossing the street and hit their head on the curb while they fell. Waiting for the paramedics to show up and totally unable to help the unconscious child that I was responsible for, I felt way more helpless than I did while handing my phone and wallet over to the asshole who pulled a gun on me. Got kidnapped by an ex-boyfriend who was weirdly obsessed with me when I was 16. He said he was 18 but was really 22. He tricked me into taking a ride in his new truck to a store a few blocks away. Instead, he drove out to the middle of nowhere and tried to rip off my clothes while screaming and crying at me. It got dark out, but he still wouldn't let me leave. I was convinced he was going to rape me and then kill me in a panic, so I told him I loved him, but that my mom found out how old he was and made me break up with him. That I wanted to hide the relationship from her, but that it would be difficult to do if I wasn't back in time for curfew, because she would ground me and take away my car. He was so ecstatic that he immediately took me back to my car. I hid from him for a few years, but ran into him at a gas station when I was 19. I swear I could feel my heart stop beating. Years later I heard he was caught in an FBI sting for online predators and went to prison. A man stalked me until he got my morning routine down. I would wake up at 5, see my spouse off, work out in a detached garage type room for 2 or 3 hours, take our dog to the park, then work in the garden or house until my spouse came home in the afternoon. That morning, my husband decided he wasn't going to work. He woke up before me and left me in bed to sleep in. When he let the dog out, he noticed the door to my workout room was open ajar, but didn't notice anything else wrong, so he closed it, called the dog, and came back inside to play video games. The guy had been waiting for me in my workout room. He had heard someone come out, so he checked the back door and it was unlocked. He came into the house with his shoes off and his pants and belt undone, and he had taken one of my knives from the kitchen drawer. When he rounded the corner to the living room, my husband and dog were there between him and me, sleeping nude with the door open in the bedroom. They were taken totally off guard. The dog went into murder mode and my husband grabbed him and opened the door to get the guy outside and call the cops. Everything happened so quickly. It could have all gone down so differently. This happened 8 years ago, but I've thought about it a lot recently with the U of I murder stuff, and it gets to me. What if my husband hadn't randomly decided to stay home that morning? Here's the good boy, he turns 11 this year. My oldest daughter didn't come home from school one day. She was supposed to take the bus home to her dad's house, and he called me frantic around 6 p.m. asking if she was with me. I was at work and the panic began. Police were called. They began looking all the while. My younger daughter was searching online comments for clues. And she found her sister. After several hours and what police had gathered, they weren't looking for a living 15-year-old. When my younger daughter, 13 at the time, realized where her sister was, EMS was sent and cops busted into the home, terrifying a set of unsuspecting parents. I wasn't kept updated. It was chaos and I didn't know my daughter was found. What they found was my daughter and another classmate overdosed in the bedroom. Both were rushed to hospital. They were found after my younger daughter followed the trail of comments online that indicated the two were planning to end their lives. My daughter coded once and the friend was comatose for a few days. Both were committed to different psychiatric facilities once they were cleared medically. It was horrible, and I can't begin to describe the terror of those days and those first hours, or I will spiral into full-blown panic. It has been years, but there has never been anything in my life to ever touch the physical illness-inducing terror of first not knowing where she was or what had happened, then the months of never letting her out of my sight. Therapy and meds and support happened, but it has been a very long road. She is better now, but that worry is always there. I know that feeling. When I was 19, we couldn't find my mom. It was a Saturday in 2001. She had acted weird that day, offering to give me money before I left for work in the morning. She had a regular social thing on Saturdays, so I knew she'd be leaving shortly after me. My older brother, who had moved out, had planned to come over for dinner after my work shift ended. She wasn't home when I got home, so Dad, brother and I wait for her for a while and finally decide to eat without her but save her a plate. Then her therapists called us. My mom had left a suicide message of the therapist's voicemail. What ensued was the most traumatic night of my life. We spent the night frantically trying to find her. I remember around 3 a.m. sitting on the couch with Dad and brother. We all had our arms around each other. We were all crying. We thought she was dead. We eventually all went to bed and I fell asleep out of sheer exhaustion. The next day, we found her. She was in a hotel in a resort town a few miles away. She had taken sleeping pills with wine, but had vomited everything up and survived. My dad and aunt went to get her so Dad could drive her home in her car. He took her straight to the ER. They transferred her to inpatient psych ward. I wouldn't get to see her for another day or two. I just remembered that night, where we all sat together on the couch, thinking she was probably dead. Dead something like, if she's dead, I might just put my rifle in my mouth and join her. I was just 19. I was still a kid dependent on my parents for the most part. That was the most scared, helpless I've ever felt in my life. A friend of mine was drinking and decided to pull out a revolver while we were sitting around talking, unloaded the gun, but in a drunk stupor decided to replace one bullet and play Russian roulette. While trying to take the gun away from him, he points it toward the ground and says it's not loaded and pulls the trigger, hitting me in my left leg. Blood was everywhere, but luckily we were only 1 block from the hospital and they immediately rushed out and flew straight there. They believed I was going to lose from the knee down, but after a second opinion and a transfer to a better hospital, there was minimal damage after surgery and a couple of months of recovery. I retained 100% use of my leg, thank the Lord above, and never talked or hung out with him again. Never hang out with drunk idiots or idiots in general. Stupidity and guns do not mix.